would like to recognize, so those are members of the executive who are here. Did I miss anybody? No, I think that's it for now. But I do want to recognize three down in Deep South. He took on a difficult area, another strong PNM area, but he gathered a huge amount of votes. That's down in the Palo Seco area. Irene, Brother Theo Henry, who also was here whole day yesterday with Sister Bermudez to make sure that we
Adia.
Phil, you got your feed?
Barajas Prime Minister, come along, my friend.
Press. You have press? I want to get. You have newspapers? How many newspapers? Yeah. Just going to wait for, I think, two newspapers are missing. Yeah, Ozzy's just following up. Testing. Good morning to members of the media. Thank you for coming out to the MSJ media conference. We're doing it outdoors today because as you can see, we have a number of our party members who have come to do various things as we get ourselves geared up for the various activities of the political season with an election coming up. So we're engaging our members and activists and so on in getting people committed to various kinds of activity, be they internal education or whether it is campaigning of one kind or the other, and I'll speak to that in a while. So we're glad that you're here this morning. Today is International Women's Day, and on behalf of the party, MSJ, we'd like to extend greetings to all of the women of Trinidad and Tobago, our wives, mothers, grandmothers, daughters, all those women who have nurtured this society of Trinidad and Tobago, not only recognizing them today, because really and truly we ought not to be recognizing the contribution by women on just one day of the year, but that should be a recognition given every single day of the year, because the work of women does not start and end on one day. It is 24/7 throughout the year. And in this regard, we want to also recognize the contribution of women to the fight for social justice, from slavery through indenture and up to independence and to today's date. We have had very important women in the history of the country, so that in the struggle of the Cambole riots, for example, the Jose riots, there were women who played central roles in those struggles for freedom, for democracy. 1903, the water riots, there was a woman who was bayoneted on the steps of Trinity Cathedral, Eva. She was pregnant, in fact, bayoneted by a British military person who came to quell the disturbances. In 1937, very important women were part of that movement, that mass movement of working people and the poor that brought about political independence for Trinidad and Tobago, that brought about the right to vote, which right we'll be exercising not too long from now. So we want to recognize all of those women, the women who were part and parcel of the struggle for social justice through the years. And therefore, as we commemorate International Women's Day, we must also recognize that the struggle for social justice has not ended. In fact, just a moment ago, we heard of a very tragic case, another tragic case of domestic violence, where a young woman was killed by her partner or spouse, and he then killed himself. All of this took place in the presence of their young child. So even on this International Women's Day, there is a lot still to fight for in terms of the rights of women, the right of our vulnerable, equal pay for equal work, and to violence against women, against the vulnerable, our children and our elderly. And this is one of those issues that the MSJ says that we are 150% behind. We are 150% behind the struggle for equal pay, for equal work. We want decent jobs for our women. We want an end to exploitation, an end to violence against women. I also want to say that there have been major issues taking place in the country over the last few weeks. And really and truly, the fundamental campaign for us in the MSJ is a campaign continuing against dispossession, against discrimination. There's a huge amount of dispossession of citizens of Trinidad and Tobago. Colony lands are being controlled and owned by friends and financiers of the ruling UNC government. We've seen that information coming forward. The colony lands are part of the birthright of every single citizen of Trinidad and Tobago. The struggle to nationalize the sugar estates, which were Tate and Lyle in the 1970s, led to the formation of Caroni 1975 Limited. And the lands that were owned by Caroni in 1975 and the lands that are owned by Petrotrin together comprise the largest portion of land in Trinidad and by extension Trinidad and Tobago. And those lands, therefore, being state-owned, are the patrimony of every single citizen, those who are born and unborn. And when those lands are being given away under surreptitious conditions and so on, and circumstances, we are dispossessing the people of Trinidad and Tobago from their patrimony, from their birthright. And we are opposed to that. We are opposed to the dispossession of people from Chaguaramas. We must recall that in the 1940s, the British dispossessed people who owned land in Chaguaramas and gave that land to the United States for military base. Yes, there was a march for Chaguaramas by Dr. Williams in 1960, and eventually the Chaguaramas land was returned by the Americans to Trinidad and Tobago. But the original landowners did not get back their land. And the descendants of those landowners, many of them planted the land as farmers in the Guave Road area and parts of Tucker Valley, and they have now been dispossessed of that. They've been on that land for generations and have been farmers for many decades, and they've been dispossessed of that by the CDA under the directions of this UNC government. And now we are hearing of the lease, which is really the giveaway of the convention center and lands that were popularly known as Shagville to big business interests and friends and family and financiers of this UNC government. We stand absolutely opposed to that dispossession of the patrimony of Trinidad and Tobago by this government to give it to a selected few big business people. We have been dispossessed of the carnival. The people are being marginalized and excluded from the carnival. And even the vendors who used to earn a little small something come carnival time got excluded from that entrepreneurship and the right to earn a little bit from the carnival. So the masses of people have been excluded, dispossessed of their own creative genius, which is the carnival. Workers are being dispossessed and denied and discriminated against, so that young people coming out of university cannot get a decent job and are working as OJTs perhaps, not utilizing their full skills and their training. Many of them are migrating. Others are on contract and therefore cannot put down their roots, so they're being dispossessed because they cannot go to the bank and get a mortgage to buy a home because they're on a 6-month contract or a 1-year contract and so on. So workers are being dispossessed. Farmers are being dispossessed of their land, not only in Chaguaramas but elsewhere, for housing and so on, or lack of water, which is destroying their crops and therefore destroying their livelihood. At another level, we see the entire country being robbed blind almost by the corruption that is taking place. And the latest example of this is at NGC. We have had live sport and so many other examples of the dispossession and robbery of taxpayers, or rather by certain persons connected with this government, dispossessing and robbing taxpayers of the wealth that should really be used for the benefit of all. At another level, you see dispossession of democratic rights and freedoms, the denial of democratic rights and freedoms, by the abuse of office, by witness tampering, by attempts to interfere with the judiciary, by the attempt to introduce without consultation a runoff provision, by all kinds of nefarious means that were being implemented by this UNC government to undermine the democratic process. Whistleblowers are being hounded, and we understand, for example, at NGC, people are being locked down, laptops are being seized, computers are being taken over, and so on, by the executive management in an attempt to cover up the misdeeds that have been taking place at that very important and valuable state enterprise. We've seen the dispossession that is taking place in the oil industry as our national patrimony of Southwest Soldado and our land-producing fields are being set up to be taken over by a few privateers in the interest of corrupt arrangements and corrupt sweetheart deals. And so when Dr. Munilal gets up and says the convention center was termite-ridden, let me say that what is really the reality is that his government, the government of Kamla Prasad Bisesa, is not simply termite-ridden, it is rotten to the core with corruption, with nepotism, with discrimination, with the dispossession of the birthright and of the rights of citizens to live in a society that is equitable and just. And this is the real issue. These are the real issues that are facing Trinidad and Tobago, and those are the issues around which the MSJ will be campaigning in the lead up to the 2015 elections. Because whoever wins the election, those issues will remain because of the policies that will be implemented and have been implemented. And it is around that that we'll be campaigning, and we'll be engaging communities and citizens throughout the country on those issues. Because until and unless those issues are addressed and we have social justice, we will be putting ourselves into a situation where this society is on the edge of a major eruption. People are hurting, people are in pain, people are angry in Trinidad and Tobago by what is taking place. The MSJ feels that hurt and pain. We understand and recognize why people are angry and upset, and we are going to be the voice of all of those who feel dispossessed, excluded, discriminated against in Trinidad and Tobago today. And that is going to be our campaign going forward. Thank you. Yeah, sure. Well, the media has said we have aligned with the PNM and Jack Warner. That is not the case. We have no ongoing talks with the PNM. We have no talks going on with the ILP. I happened to be at the same place on Friday walking in solidarity with the Guave Road farmers. And let me just make the point that the Guave Road farmers, we have expressed solidarity with them not today, but as far back as a year ago, from the time that, in fact, there was a Sunday morning right here, if you recall, Ivan, when we were having a press conference, and the bulldozers had just moved in down in Chaguaramas, and they were locking the gates. And our party PRO was down there, and I spoke to that issue. So that we've been in solidarity with the Guave Road farmers, not on Friday only, but going back a long way, and we've had meetings with them on an ongoing basis. So I happen to be in solidarity with them, as was Mr. Warner, and therefore we walk together. But there's no talks going on between the MSJ and the ILP. There are no talks going on between us and any other political party. We have conversations with many individuals in Trinidad and Tobago who are equally upset about what is taking place in this country and who want to see a political system and persons in office on the basis of no discrimination, non-racial, non-ethnic politics, the fair distribution, equitable distribution of the resources to subserve the common good as the Constitution provides for. When that time comes, we will make that announcement in due course. Our focus, of course, is on the campaign around the dispossession, discrimination, corruption that is taking place in Trinidad and Tobago today, the exploitation and exclusion of ordinary people from the country, from the resources of this country. That is what we're going to be focusing on, because that is what people are concerned about at this time, and that is going to be our campaign to start off with. When the time comes, we will let you know about the other things. We have been always very clear. For us, the objective is not to get an office or a position. We have never been about office or position as the end. Other people fall over themselves to try to get to be a minister or a senator or a chairman of a board. Those are not the things that drive us forward. What drives us forward is the fact that our people are living lives that are not happy because they're being discriminated against. They don't have the food to put on the table. They don't have a decent job. They're being exploited. The farmers are being pushed off the land, and that has to change. And we are committed to change those things. And that is what drives us forward, to bring about real change, what we call the Second Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. That's what drives us forward. And elections is simply one of those things that one has to engage in as we seek to bring about the Second Republic. When the time comes, Ivan, we will let you know. Hollis, any questions? No? Phil? Nikita? All right? Okay. These are colleagues. I'm not going to introduce everyone left to right or the case to be, but we have a number of members of the Executive and Activist Council. A number of our members are also here as we gather on this day to energize ourselves for the activities of the next few months. Okay? Thanks. After the media leaves, sisters, brothers, comrades, we're going to stick around. There's some